Imperial Rome, a city of unparalleled might and splendor, stood as the very heart of an empire stretching across continents. Its marble facades whispered tales of conquest, ambition, and an unyielding commitment to rigid societal decorum. Beneath this gilded exterior, however, simmered a cauldron of profound intrigue, ruthless political maneuvering, and insatiable power struggles. An empire forged by military prowess, yet sustained by the delicate balance of aristocratic lineage and strict traditional expectations, was acutely vulnerable to internal forces. It was into this complex, often brutal world that a figure emerged whose boundless ambition would challenge the very foundations of Roman society. Her name was Valeria Messalina, and her reign as empress would become an unrivaled scandal, etched forever into the annals of imperial history. Young, beautiful, and possessing an audacious spirit, Messalina held a magnetic allure, yet harbored a hunger for influence that knew no conventional limits. As the third wife of Emperor Claudius, a man often perceived as a scholarly recluse, she ascended to the absolute pinnacle of Roman power. However, instead of embracing the traditional, demure role expected of an imperial consort, Messalina chose a path of radical defiance. Our journey now plunges into the heart of her controversial reign, a period so brazen and scandalous it astounded even Rome's jaded elite. This is not merely the story of a woman consumed by desire, but a profound examination of power's intoxicating allure and its capacity for corruption. We will uncover how her personal actions, seemingly driven by reckless abandon, possessed far-reaching and dangerous political ramifications for the capital. Expert historical analyses reveal a calculated ambition beneath the veneer of wild hedonism, portraying her as a formidable, albeit controversial, political operator. Her extraordinary narrative compels us to confront a fundamental question. What happens when an empress openly defies the deeply entrenched traditions of a patriarchal empire? How did one woman's insatiable desires and ruthless cunning manage to grip an entire capital, bending its most powerful figures to her unyielding will? Prepare for an epic cinematic journey into a world of opulent excess, dangerous liaisons, and a relentless pursuit of ultimate control and personal vindication. This is the in-depth saga of Messalina, the empress who dared to challenge Rome and whose audacious life forever held its imperial legacy captive. The grandeur of imperial Rome in the 1st century AD was a spectacle unmatched in the ancient world, a beacon of power extending its dominion across vast continents. From the sun-baked sands of Egypt to the misty shores of Britannia, the Pax Romana, or Roman peace, ostensibly held sway, enforced by legions and shrewd administration. Yet, beneath this veneer of absolute control and unparalleled might, the heart of the empire, Rome itself, pulsed with a dangerous, fragile equilibrium. It was a political landscape scarred by civil war, marked by the assassination of emperors and constantly teetering on the precipice of chaos. The legacy of Augustus, the first emperor, had established the Julio-Claudian dynasty, but his successors struggled to maintain his delicate balance of power. Each emperor inherited not just a throne, but a viper's nest of senatorial ambition, praetorian intrigue, and the ever-present threat of betrayal from within his own household. Historical records reveal a court where loyalty was a scarce commodity, and power, once attained, was a heavy, often fatal burden for its holder. The once mighty Roman Senate, though stripped of much of its ancient authority, still commanded respect, and more critically, could still conspire to dismantle a reign. Meanwhile, the Praetorian Guard, the emperor's elite bodyguards, had emerged as an undeniable kingmaker, capable of elevating or destroying rulers with terrifying swiftness. The sheer weight of imperial power, the expectation of godlike authority, and the constant struggle to manage a vast, diverse empire pressed down on the wearer of the purple. This was the volatile stage, steeped in tradition and shadowed by violence, upon which the life of Messalina would dramatically unfold, challenging every societal convention. It was into this perilous environment that Tiberius Claudius Caesar, Augustus Germanicus, known to history simply as Claudius, was thrust as emperor. An utterly improbable choice, Claudius was born into the imperial family, the nephew of Emperor Tiberius and the uncle of the infamous Caligula. Unlike his more charismatic, often brutal relatives, Claudius was a dedicated scholar, a prolific historian, and an intellectual of considerable depth. He suffered from physical infirmities, a limp, a tremor, and a stammer, which led his own family to often mock and underestimate him. Many considered him a fool, a perpetual invalid, certainly no threat to power, an assessment that, ironically, likely saved his life during multiple purges. His dramatic ascent to the throne, as expert analysis confirms, was one of history's most astonishing twists of fate, a testament to the Praetorian Guard's caprice. After Caligula's assassination, Claudius was literally discovered by a guard hiding behind a curtain, trembling with fear, expecting his own execution. Instead, in a move born of expediency and a desire for reward, the Praetorian Guard proclaimed him emperor, dragging him, quite unwillingly, into power. The Senate initially met this pronouncement with disdain, viewing Claudius as a weak and illegitimate ruler, a pawn of the soldiers. Yet, despite these initial perceptions and his perceived weaknesses, Claudius proved to be a surprisingly capable and diligent administrator, a true paradox of power. He oversaw ambitious public works projects, including new aqueducts and harbor improvements, vital infrastructure that still stands as a testament to his vision. His reign saw significant legal reforms, demonstrating his deep understanding of Roman law and his commitment to justice, often personally hearing cases. Remarkably, under Claudius, the Roman Empire expanded significantly, most famously through the successful conquest of Britannia, a formidable military undertaking. He was, as historical records attest, a man whose intellectual prowess far outstripped the public's perception of him. A brilliant mind trapped in a vulnerable body. Yet, this intelligent ruler harbored a profound personal insecurity, a deep need for acceptance, and a susceptibility to the influence of those he trusted. Claudius, despite his administrative strengths, was a deeply emotional man, prone to sudden fits of anger, and, more dangerously, an often misplaced affection. In this complex male-dominated world, the role of an empress was both critical and rigorously constrained by centuries of Roman societal expectation. She was expected to be the embodiment of Roman virtue, specifically pudicitia, modesty, chastity, and loyalty, the bedrock of the ideal Roman matron. The empress served as a powerful symbol of stability, motherhood, and tradition, a living example for all Roman women to emulate. Her primary, indispensable duty was to produce legitimate heirs to secure the imperial succession, ensuring the continuity of the ruling dynasty. Maintaining a spotless public image was paramount. Any hint of impropriety could undermine not only her standing, but also her husband's authority. Her influence was to be discreet, operating within the domestic sphere, supporting her husband through quiet counsel rather than overt political maneuvering. Open displays of ambition or public scandal were anathema, direct challenges to the strict social order and the emperor's sole claim to power. Earlier empresses like Livia, Augustus's wife, or Agrippina the Elder, Claudius's mother, exemplified this careful balance of influence and public decorum. Their power, though substantial, was almost always exercised indirectly through their sons, husbands, or carefully cultivated social networks. This was the formidable expectation, the weighty tradition that Valeria Messalina, Claudius's third wife, would be measured against and ultimately defy. Valeria Messalina herself hailed from an impeccably noble lineage, directly linked to the Julio-Claudian house, bestowing upon her immense prestige from birth. She was the great niece of Augustus and the cousin of Nero. placing her firmly within the very heart of Rome's most powerful aristocratic families. Young, undeniably beautiful, charismatic, and imbued with a fierce, almost palpable ambition, Messalina was destined for a life of prominence. Her marriage to Claudius occurred years before his unexpected ascension, a strategic union that seemed unremarkable at the time, merely cementing family ties. For Claudius, who struggled with legitimacy and family acceptance, Messalina offered an invaluable dynastic connection, bolstering his claims through her bloodline. Initially, Messalina played her part as the demure, virtuous Roman wife, seemingly conforming to the rigorous expectations placed upon her. She fulfilled her paramount duty, bearing Claudius 2 children, a son, Britannicus, and a daughter, Octavia, thus securing the vital imperial succession. Yet, beneath this veneer of conventional piety, a burgeoning personality simmered, one that would soon dramatically reject the constraints of tradition, sowing the first, indelible seeds of her infamous and scandalous legacy. The imperial palace, a labyrinth of power and intrigue, became Messalina's arena. She entered Claudius's world not as a fragile beauty, but as a strategic mind, keenly aware of the opportunities before her. Her youth belied a fierce ambition, a thirst for influence that few in the aging Roman court could anticipate. She meticulously observed, discerning the fault lines of power and the vulnerabilities of those who held it. Claudius, an emperor prone to scholarly distraction, often found solace in trusted companionship, making him an ideal target for subtle manipulation. His intellectual pursuits often left him oblivious to the political machinations swirling around him. Messalina understood this profoundly. Her initial approach was one of unwavering devotion, a carefully crafted facade of loyalty and affection towards her much older husband. Historical records reveal this wasn't merely a wife's love, but a calculated political maneuver to secure her position and influence the emperor directly. She sought to become indispensable to him. Her charm, an undeniable force, captivated not only Claudius, but also many of his inner circle. She cultivated an image of grace and domesticity, masking a sharp, strategic intellect. Expert analysis of this period confirms Messalina's genius in isolating potential rivals. She subtly undermined their credibility, ensuring Claudius's ear remained primarily hers. She forged alliances, not always with the most reputable figures, but with those who held sway, from influential freedmen to ambitious senators. These were often opportunistic pacts. These collaborations were transactional, built on a delicate balance of shared interests and mutual dependencies, easily dissolved when no longer serving her grander designs. Her ability to manipulate information was legendary. Whispers could be amplified, truths distorted, all to sway Claudius's judgment and consolidate her own growing authority. She mastered the art of strategic rumor-mongering, planting seeds of doubt about anyone who posed even a distant threat to her burgeoning influence within the palace. This wasn't overt aggression, but a sophisticated form of political warfare waged through social engineering and calculated psychological pressure within the imperial court. Claudius, often preoccupied with state affairs or his historical texts, trusted his empress implicitly, often accepting her interpretations of events without deep scrutiny. Messalina systematically dismantled the networks of power that predated her, replacing them with her own carefully chosen loyalists, indebted to her patronage. She understood that true power lay not just in direct command, but in controlling access and information flow to the emperor himself. This was her golden cage strategy. The court became a stage for her intricate political ballet, where alliances shifted like desert sands, and yesterday's friend could become tomorrow's casualty. She began to exercise significant influence over imperial appointments, placing her allies in key administrative and military positions across the empire. This demonstrated her strategic foresight, ensuring that her reach extended beyond the palace walls, establishing a network of individuals beholden to her will. The subtle whispers of her extraordinary ambitions started to circulate, initially dismissed as court gossip, yet they hinted at a disregard for conventional boundaries. Her rising power emboldened her. She began to act with an audacious confidence, seemingly above the very laws and moral codes that governed other Roman citizens. This disregard, initially veiled, slowly began to manifest in her dealings, pushing the boundaries of what was acceptable for an empress of Rome. The pursuit of power for Messalina transcended the strictures of tradition and public expectation. Her personal desires began to intertwine dangerously with political ambition. She skillfully leveraged the expectations of female submission to mask her true authority, using her perceived vulnerability as a shield for her ruthless actions. The political games she played were not just for survival, but for absolute dominion. Her every move, a calculated step towards unchallenged influence. This strategic wit, while effective, also sowed the seeds of her own eventual downfall, creating a volatile environment within the very heart of the empire. She had secured her place, not merely as an empress by marriage, but as a formidable political operator, capable of bending Rome's elite to her will. The golden cage she inhabited was less a prison for her, and more a fortress from which she projected her unseen yet pervasive power over Claudius's court. Her early successes showcased a mastery of Roman power dynamics, turning the inherent weaknesses of the imperial system into sources of her strength. Yet, with each strategic victory, the shadows of her unchecked ambition grew longer, hinting at darker impulses yet to be unleashed upon the unsuspecting capital. She had arrived as a bride, but quickly transformed into the architect of a new power structure, meticulously crafted to serve her ever-growing appetites. This foundational period laid the groundwork for the more sensational and destructive phases of her reign, setting a dangerous precedent within Rome's leadership. Her influence, now firmly established, became the silent force shaping countless decisions, a testament to her profound, albeit morally ambiguous, strategic brilliance. The subtle machinations of Messalina, once hidden behind courtly whispers, now exploded into the very public gaze of Rome. Her depravity ceased to be mere rumor. Emboldened by Claudius's apparent ignorance and her unchallenged power, the empress shed all pretense of decorum, embracing a life of scandalous indulgence. Historians record her brazen affairs, flaunted openly in the city's pleasure gardens and even within the hallowed halls of the imperial palace itself. One notorious entanglement with the actor Menester became the talk of the aristocracy, a public spectacle that mocked the sanctity of the imperial marriage. She coerced him, according to ancient accounts, even forcing Claudius to order Menester to obey her every whim, a humiliating exhibition of control. Claudius, meanwhile, remained either oblivious or deliberately ignorant, immersed in his studies and affairs of state, an emperor blinded by misplaced trust. Messalina's influence extended far beyond personal dalliances. She wielded immense power through her network of sycophants and cunning advisors. Through them, state appointments and lucrative positions within the empire were openly bought and sold, transforming governance into a marketplace of corruption. Justice itself became a commodity. Those who sought favor from the empress found their petitions expedited, while her enemies faced swift and brutal condemnation. A creeping fear began to settle over Rome. Courtiers, senators, and ordinary citizens alike lived under the shadow of Messalina's capricious whims. What began as whispers of scandal now escalated into open, albeit hushed, resentment against the woman who seemed to hold Rome hostage. Her machinations soon turned deadly. The wealthy and influential senator Valerius Asiaticus found himself targeted, accused of a false conspiracy. Messalina coveted his magnificent gardens, the Horti Luculani, and engineered his demise with ruthless efficiency, demonstrating her unchecked avarice. Despite Claudius's initial reluctance, swayed by the empress's relentless pressure and cunning fabrications, Asiaticus was condemned and forced to commit suicide. Another victim of Messalina's insatiable cruelty was Poppaea Sabina the Elder, mother of the future Empress Poppaea. She allegedly plotted against Poppaea Sabina due to a trivial slight and her burgeoning popularity, proving that no one was safe from her jealous rage. Again, through insidious accusations and manipulated evidence, Messalina orchestrated the senator's downfall and eventual execution. These public executions and the blatant corruption systematically eroded the integrity of the imperial household, staining its very foundations. The revered palace, once a symbol of Roman power and virtue, transformed into a den of vice and intrigue under Messalina's pervasive influence. Rome, a city priding itself on its strict societal norms and public morality, watched in horrified fascination as its empress flouted every sacred custom. The sheer audacity of her actions introduced a level of depravity unprecedented in the city's annals, captivating and horrifying the populace. To many, Messalina's power seemed absolute and unassailable. Her enemies vanished, her lovers multiplied, and her extravagant lifestyle grew bolder. Claudius, in his apparent complicity or blindness, unintentionally highlighted his own weakness, further undermining imperial authority in the eyes of the elite. Public discourse shifted from mere gossip to genuine alarm regarding the future of the Julio-Claudian dynasty and Rome itself. Senators walked a perilous tightrope, fearing Messalina's retribution if they dared to speak out, yet silently condemning her destructive reign. Her mastery of manipulation was chilling. She expertly played individuals against each other, twisting situations to her own advantage with ruthless precision. The lines between her private appetites and public duties blurred entirely, demonstrating a complete disregard for the responsibilities of her exalted position. Messalina's actions were not merely personal transgressions, they were direct challenges to Rome's moral compass, a defiant repudiation of traditional values. Across the vast Roman Empire, news of the empress's scandalous life began to circulate, eroding respect for the central authority in distant provinces. Unbeknownst to Messalina, however, her escalating brazenness was a ticking time bomb, slowly but surely paving the way for her own spectacular downfall. Her insatiable desire for power and pleasure pushed her to increasingly desperate acts, making an inevitable and devastating confrontation unavoidable. Expert analysis of these historical records reveals a critical period where the personal failings of one figure threatened to destabilize an entire empire. This era of unprecedented depravity firmly set the stage for the dramatic, almost unbelievable events that would seal Messalina's infamous fate. For years, Messalina's scandalous exploits remained shrouded, protected by Claudius's remarkable naivety, or perhaps his deliberate ignorance. The emperor, ever engrossed in his academic pursuits and the minutiae of state, seemed oblivious to the growing whispers that threatened his throne. But even the most steadfast illusions must eventually shatter, especially when reality insists on a public, audacious display of defiance. His inner circle, particularly the powerful freedmen Narcissus and Callistus, could no longer ignore the dangerous charade unfolding around them. They were not merely servants. They were the pillars of Claudius's administration, fiercely loyal to the emperor and the stability of Rome itself. The tipping point arrived with an act of unparalleled temerity, Messalina's public marriage to the young aristocratic Gaius Silius. This was no secret liaison, no fleeting indiscretion hidden behind palace walls, but a formal, documented ceremony witnessed by many. Silius, lured by ambition, had even divorced his own wife to partake in this audacious, treasonous parody of imperial succession. Historians debate the true intent. Was it a genuine attempt to depose Claudius, or simply Messalina's ultimate twisted power play? Regardless, for Narcissus, it was an undeniable, direct challenge to the very foundation of the Julio-Claudian dynasty and Claudius's rule. The freedman understood the stakes. To reveal such an ugly truth to a doting, unsuspecting emperor was perilous, fraught with risk. Yet, the alternative, allowing Messalina's recklessness to destabilize the empire, was an even greater, unconscionable betrayal of their charge. A plan was meticulously crafted. They needed irrefutable proof, presented with such clarity that even Claudius could not dismiss it. They chose a moment when Claudius was away from Rome, visiting Ostia, ensuring Messalina could not intercept or manipulate the narrative. Narcissus, demonstrating a strategic brilliance worthy of a military commander, took command of the imperial guard for this delicate mission. The moment of reckoning arrived. Claudius was confronted, not with gossip, but with official documents, sworn testimonies, and chilling details. The shock was profound. The emperor, whose greatest flaw was perhaps his trust, struggled to reconcile these facts with his perception of his wife. His initial disbelief quickly gave way to a chilling realization, a furious comprehension of the depths of Messalina's perfidy. He demanded to know if he was still emperor, a stark indication of how deeply Messalina's actions had shaken his sense of authority and security. The advisors confirmed the plot, highlighting Silius's growing influence and the danger of Messalina appointing a new heir. The imperial court exploded into action. Claudius's slow, ponderous nature vanished, replaced by a swift and brutal decisiveness. Orders flew. The men associated with Messalina, particularly Gaius Silius and his co-conspirators, were rounded up without mercy. Silius, still hoping for some imperial clemency or a plea for Messalina, met his end with a stoic silence, perhaps realizing his folly. Executions were swift, a brutal purge designed to excise the cancerous threat from the heart of Rome's political landscape. Meanwhile, Messalina, learning of the unraveling conspiracy, attempted a desperate flight, seeking sanctuary in the gardens of Lucullus. Her mother, Domitia Lepida, a woman of stern Roman sensibilities, advised her daughter to end her life with dignity, to avoid imperial disgrace. Messalina hesitated, clinging to a faint hope that Claudius, for all his fury, would still be swayed by their shared history, their children. She even attempted to send a final, desperate plea to the emperor, a last-ditch effort to recall his affections or his compassion. But Narcissus, ever vigilant, intercepted the messenger, ensuring Claudius's wrath remained unmitigated, his resolve unyielding. The imperial agents arrived. Messalina stood, abandoned and alone, facing the grim consequences of her boundless ambition and depravity. With a dagger, her fate was sealed. The once all-powerful empress, whose scandals had captivated Rome, met a solitary, ignominious end. Thus ended the reign of Valeria Messalina, a story of unchecked power, scandalous excess, and a dramatic, sudden fall from grace. Her demise served as a chilling reminder of Rome's brutal political realities and the unforgiving nature of imperial wrath. The echo of the executioner's blade reverberated far beyond the gardens of Lucullus, sending a profound shockwave through the very heart of Rome. Messalina was gone, yet her ghost lingered, a specter of scandal and unchecked ambition. For Emperor Claudius, the immediate aftermath was a complex tapestry of relief, profound personal betrayal, and a deep-seated, agonizing shame. He was free from her manipulative clutches, but forever scarred by her audacious treason. The public, initially stunned by the swift, brutal justice, now watched for the emperor's next move. Would this decisive act restore the dignity of the imperial office so recently sullied? Claudius, by all accounts, was left a broken man, emotionally devastated by the treachery of the woman he had married and loved, the mother of his children. The humiliation must have been unbearable for an emperor. His advisors, notably Narcissus, had forced his hand, revealing the true extent of Messalina's depravity. This intervention, though necessary, highlighted Claudius's own vulnerability and susceptibility to influence. A purge of Messalina's lovers and conspirators followed swiftly, a bloody testament to the price of entanglement with a fallen empress. The imperial court was cleansed, but fear remained palpable. The fate of her children, Octavia and Britannicus, hung precariously in the balance. Stripped of their mother, their lineage now bore the stain of her infamy, casting a long shadow over their future. The power vacuum left by Messalina was immediate and dangerous. Courtiers maneuvered. Ambitious women plotted, all eager to fill the void at the emperor's side and gain unparalleled influence. This event laid bare the terrifying fragility of imperial power, demonstrating how easily a monarch could be undermined from within their own household by the most intimate of betrayals. It exposed the inherent dangers of unchecked power residing in an empress, a woman who could, through seduction and manipulation, threaten the very stability of the state. The scandal highlighted the absolute necessity of imperial vigilance. An emperor, however powerful, could not afford to be naive or blind to the machinations unfolding in his own palace. This episode served as a stark reminder of the corrosive nature of corruption and the brutal consequences awaiting those who dared to defy the Augustan order. Rome demanded stability, not debauchery. From a political standpoint, Messalina's downfall reinforced the traditional Roman emphasis on marital fidelity and public morality, at least as an ideal, even if often disregarded in practice. The vulnerability of the imperial succession was glaringly apparent. An empress with enough influence could attempt to subvert the established line, potentially plunging Rome into civil strife. Claudius's forced decisiveness, though late, prevented a deeper crisis. Yet it was a painful lesson learned through personal agony and public disgrace. The emperor had nearly lost everything. The aftermath saw an intense focus on the selection of Claudius's next empress. Rome could not afford another Messalina, another consort whose personal desires threatened the public good. Moral lessons resonated throughout Roman society. The tragic end of Messalina was a chilling fable about the perils of hubris, lust, and the catastrophic abuse of imperial authority. Future empresses would be scrutinized with unprecedented intensity. Their every move, their every ambition, would be viewed through the lens of Messalina's scandalous, destructive reign. Her story became a cautionary tale, etched into the annals of history, a grim warning against the dangers of an empress who prioritized personal gratification over the welfare of the empire. This shift influenced the rise of Agrippina the Younger, Claudius's next wife, who learned crucial, brutal lessons from Messalina's mistakes. Agrippina would be far more calculating, far more subtle. Agrippina understood the necessity of cultivating a public image of virtue and devotion, while skillfully maneuvering behind the scenes to consolidate her power and secure her son Nero's succession. Messalina's legacy thus subtly shaped the political landscape for generations, influencing how imperial consorts operated and how they were perceived by both the emperor and the Roman populace. The swift, brutal justice meted out became a chilling precedent, a clear message that imperial tolerance for such defiance was non-existent. The state would protect itself at any cost. Her reign, though brief, underscored the critical role of imperial women. They were not merely wives or mothers, but powerful political figures whose actions could literally reshape the empire. Historians and moralists for centuries would cite Messalina as the archetypal promiscuous and power-hungry woman, her name synonymous with scandal, depravity, and ultimate ruin. Her story, documented in ancient texts, served as a perpetual reminder of the dark underbelly of absolute power, where personal failings could morph into public catastrophes. The sheer audacity of her defiance, attempting to marry Gaius Silius while Claudius still lived, challenged the very foundation of Roman law and the sanctity of the imperial institution. This episode forced Rome to confront its own vulnerabilities, revealing how easily even the most established structures could be shaken by an individual's unchecked ambition and moral decay. The scandal resonated through the imperial court, creating a climate of heightened suspicion and paranoia that would define Claudius's remaining years and ripple through succeeding reigns. Messalina became a permanent fixture in the collective Roman memory, not as a glorious empress, but as a symbol of corruption, excess, and the catastrophic consequences of a life lived without restraint. Her tale illuminated the constant tension between individual freedom and the demands of imperial responsibility, especially for those closest to the throne. The lessons learned from Messalina's shocking downfall profoundly influenced the strategies of future emperors in managing their households and safeguarding the imperial line. She remains a figure of endless fascination and debate, a woman whose actions forced Rome to reevaluate the delicate balance of power, morality, and succession. Messalina's turbulent reign and dramatic demise solidified her controversial place in history, forever serving as a symbol of unchecked ambition and scandal that challenged Rome's very soul. Her enduring shadow reminds us that even in the most majestic empires, the human element, its flaws, its passions, its treachery, can leave an indelible mark on the grand tapestry of history. Messalina's saga, etched into the annals of Rome, transcends mere scandal. Her turbulent life left an indelible mark, a chilling testament to power's intoxicating allure and corrosive effects upon an empire. For 2 millennia, her name has resonated as a cautionary echo, a dark mirror reflecting the dangers of unchecked ambition within the heart of the world's most formidable power. Her tale starkly illustrates the profound asymmetry between individual desire and the colossal, often unforgiving structure of Roman authority and expectation itself. Messalina, through her brazen defiance and relentless pursuit of forbidden pleasures, inadvertently exposed the fragile underbelly of imperial morality and political pretense. Her desperate struggle for survival, a relentless dance on the precipice of public judgment, ultimately failed but underscored the treacherous nature of courtly power dynamics. She stands not as a hero, but as an undeniable, disruptive force that dramatically rent the fabric of Roman society, revealing its deep-seated hypocrisy and latent vulnerabilities. Indeed, her story offers profound insights into the intricate interplay of power, gender, and societal control, lessons that remain strikingly relevant even today. The enduring fascination with Messalina stems from her raw, unfiltered humanity, a dramatic saga that compels us to analyze Rome's grand narrative anew. To delve deeper into such epic historical narratives, uncovering forgotten truths and strategic insights, subscribe to our channel for more cinematic explorations of history's turning points. Like this video, share your thoughts in the comments below, and help us build a leading community dedicated to incisive historical analysis and compelling storytelling.